it's Warren Coughlin here. Welcome to another episode of the Business That Matters Spotlight, a podcast dedicated to spotlighting entrepreneurs who combine business discipline and a desire to make the world a better place through entrepreneurship. And I've been looking forward to today's conversation. Adventurous travel, compassionate impact, personal growth, all in one business. Jill Valentine is the founder of UGO, an extraordinary company that it's pretty cool. I think it creates safe and really daring opportunities for people to travel abroad, engage in impactful volunteer work while abroad, and to journey within themselves and to create deep bonds with other participants in the places they visit. She's a passionate humanitarian with a long history of change making, including authoring Dare to be a Dandelion, a book and fundraising tool for those trying to raise funds for causes they care about. Jill, welcome to the Spotlight.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Warren. Excited to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So I like to do something a little bit different on the Spotlight. I'm a realist. Not everybody has the time to stay and listen all the way through a podcast. So I think it's a way of thanking people for tuning in to give them something right out of the gate. So if you could give one tip to an entrepreneur trying to have an impact with their business, what might that be?
It would be get creative. Think sort of outside the box of how you might be able to make an impact or a difference. Oftentimes, we kind of go by a lot of the standard things. I'm going to donate a 1%. I'm going to do a give back, something like that. But honestly, there are so many different ways to create impact, oftentimes before we're even making profit. So it's getting creative, doing things like looking at all your suppliers, your vendors, people you work with, and making conscious choices as to who you're going to partner with in those very even early phases that can make a difference. For example, when I was first starting, I didn't have tons of money to be putting towards, making donations or making a difference that way. I mean, obviously my whole business model is making a difference, but I choose to use a small print shop in Toronto that helps youth learn to do publishing and printing. And it's called Eva's, and it's awesome. And instead of using a big company like Staples, that's where I do, or, Vistaprint, that's where I do my printing. If I'm hosting a small gathering, an event, I look for a caterer that, again, has some purpose, Impact Kitchen, whatever. So it's these like small little creative ways to make an impact. I give out swag. So my current program is to Tanzania. And when someone signs up, I'm using a local artisan here who makes beautiful journals with the beautiful materials from different African countries. And that's what I'm choosing to send people. So again, making a difference, hiring a local new immigrant here to, create beautiful products for me. That's the kind of stuff that you can just really get outside of sort of the standard impact making.
I love that because a lot of people, there is sort of, and by the way, I use Eva as well. That's how I got my business. Yeah, for the exact same reason too. They're a good organization. But it's interesting because a lot of people think they have to wait to do good until they're making enough money before they can do that. And then that can always gets kicked down the road because I just got to make one more investment. I just got to get to that next market. And then the do good stuff gets pushed off as well. So that there's ways of integrating it without costing yourself money right out of the gate if you're thoughtful.
Exactly.
All right. If you like that one, stick around. Now, Jill, I want to hear more about your trajectory and what got you here and all that. But first, what is UGO? Like my brief intro really didn't do it.
UGO is a transformative travel company. So it's also a social enterprise. And basically, I run life coaching programs that include a volunteer experience abroad as part of the curriculum, as the tools for growth and self-development. So for example, Courage Community Kilimanjaro that I've run twice in the past and have coming up next year is a 3-month coaching program. We do group coaching over Zoom. And then right in the middle, we go away, we volunteer with Dare Women's Foundation for a week of physical, getting our hands dirty, giving back work and bonding with the community, and then a week of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And the whole thing is all inner work, connecting with others, just having an incredible experience, getting away from your familiar, from your environment, the responsibilities, all of that kind of stuff, and just really taking the time to dive in, do some inner work while we're in the midst of an incredible culture and giving back and having all sorts of stuff going on inside of us, that gives us sort of the juicy stuff to look at and the revealing things about ourselves.
So who is drawn to this, or who do you try to reach out to? Like, who's you go for?
So, we get all sorts of people from different ages, stages, and all of that. People that are interested in giving back, personal development, getting out of their comfort zone, traveling. Some of the key targets that we, both focus on and attract would be what I call sort of the corporate unhappy. So the people that are working, potentially sort of the 9 to 5 and are just finding that it's just not fulfilling them enough. They're looking for more. And that's not to say it's about coming with us and then deciding to pack up and, move to Tanzania and start an NGO or anything. It's about them just looking at their lives and trying to figure out what can bring more meaning to them through their work, through other relationships, through maybe giving back in their local community. So that's a big one. That's what we kind of term it, the corporate and happy.
I've never heard that demographic.
Yeah. Well, I would have said I was a corporate and happy, though I was in nonprofit, but feeling similar things. So it's the people that are sort of in the grind and just not feeling fulfilled and are wanting to just explore, how can I be happier in my life? And then we also get these sort of empty nesters looking, for or looking towards retirement. Again, a lot of parents lost themselves in parenthood, especially moms. Their kids go off to university and now they're sort of like, who am I? Who am I? So once, I've kind of been sort of outward focused on raising, my kids and being there for my family. Who am I? And how do I now want to sort of give my energy and attention? What can now fuel a sense of purpose and meaning within me now that my children, sort of need me less. Obviously they always need us, but, don't need us sort of in the day-to-day as much. And then we get entrepreneurs who are just looking for an adventure, looking to figure out how they can make a difference. Similarly, they might be running a successful business, but it might not have the impact piece. And so they're looking to explore how they can add more meaning to the work that they're doing.
Nice. And so I got a couple of questions around this. So David Brooks has a book, The Second Mountain, and almost sounds like a lot of your people are people climbing that second mountain. So do you find, like, how much are younger people drawn to this? Or is this something like, would you say your demographics later in life, like 40 plus, or do you get a lot of younger people like that sort of, what's my meaning as opposed to how do I advance my career? Sounds like it might be something coming a little bit later, but I'm not sure. A lot of younger people are very interested in having impact as well.
Yeah. So, we do get sort of the interest, but we generally tend to, and also just my network and sort of who I'm out there and connecting with do tend to be, you're looking at the 35 to 65 kind of demographic. But it's interesting. I used to coach gap year students. And a lot of them are looking, at that age for what am I doing? Like, it can be a really great who am I experience and what do I want to do? But I don't necessarily draw those. That's not who we are marketing towards, though I do chat with a lot of individuals that are like, this sounds awesome. And I have taken, a few people that were in their 20s, especially early on. And, we sit down and I advise them and they're always more than welcome. Oftentimes they are looking for more of a gap year experience, something that is longer. They have more flexibility. So they tend to be looking for like, I want to go away for a month or 2 or 6 or a year to have that give back and growth experience. And so I, advise them because they do have, more time to get away on different ways to have an intentional travel abroad or volunteer abroad experience that can also shape their lives and help them with self-discovery. And I'll tell them the kinds of exercises and activities that we do on the coaching end. But yeah, they have just a lot more freedom. So they tend to want to head off for longer periods of time.
Cool. So on the coaching, I'm curious about it. So when you do a group coaching around something like this, is there is it like a curriculum? Like how do you, or what do you coach on? If someone's
Yes.
coming to you for this and they want to have an impact, like is it a particular topic, or just how do you unpack that a little bit?
So we have what's called the triple change effect model, and it's modeled around change yourself, change your community, change your world. And so there's exercises and activities that sort of fall into each of those modules, for lack of a better word, or each of those areas. So we do, self-exploration around your strengths, your values, a lot of who are you. That's sort of the beginning of a lot of the work that I feel before we can make an impact in the world. We have to know who we are and what gifts we can share, what kind of impact we're hoping to make, that sort of stuff. So there's the self-exploration piece. Change your community piece is around looking at the relationships in your life, and your community. And a lot of our meaning, yes, can be around impact, but it's also just, having nourishing people surrounding us. We talk about the 5 people in our lives, that kind of stuff. So there's a broad curriculum around the 3 pillars of happiness, actually, which is sense of purpose, nourishing relationships, and deep sense of gratitude. And that's all kind of within this self-awareness piece. And so we focus in on things that I know would bring more meaning into people's lives and more happiness, even if they're not super impact focused. We're sort of, it's a broad curriculum in that way. And then while we're abroad, we do start tapping into the impact piece, the giving back, what's your social legacy? Do you have this call to contribution, and what might that look like? And that's the piece that also then the change your world piece, what difference do you want to make, and we go and we make it. We go and we make a difference. For some people, it's their first time volunteering. Others, they have extensive histories of giving back. And then we come home and it's the integrating home piece and the what next? What kind of difference do you want to make? And who are you? And where does that fit into your life? Are you an entrepreneur and you're going to use your business? Are you someone who's working a 9 to 5 and you want to maybe job purpose, make your job feel more purposeful, or leave it and make your personal, make it so that you're going to give back in a personal way in your local community? So we explore that. And again, for those that are entrepreneurial and are running their own businesses or a part of a business, we look then at the business and what makes sense. And a lot of that does come from us, though. You can do sort of 2 things in terms of making impact when related to your business. It can be a personal cause that's unrelated to sort of what your business does, but something that has personally impacted you. And then you can sort of tie into that. Or you look at your business and what makes sense. Are you a restaurant? Maybe something around, food security makes sense for you, or whatever. So we kind of look at that. So there is a specific curriculum that we take people through: exercises, self-reflection, giving back. In we do it over a course of 3 months. So it's meaty, but it's also very broad.
Mm-hmm. And do the people who participate in this, it's 3 months, plus a trip, which is an adventure, like, do people stay connected to each other, either as a cohort or just, I would imagine you get some pretty deep conversations which would form good relationships.
Oh my gosh. We have people basically leave the country, and now ultimately, everyone stays connected. We have WhatsApp group that we stay very bonded and connected with. Everybody leaves the experiences often saying, like, this feels like a family. I had no idea how close I could have in terms of like relationships. A lot of people will be like, I know people for 25 years and we don't have this depth and this connection, because we do go into those places of sharing vulnerably, really getting to know people. How well do you really know your friends? Do you know their deepest dreams and aspirations? Do you know what keeps them up at night? Often we don't sort of dive into those conversations, when we're, playing ultimate frisbee or just heading out for a casual dinner. So yeah, the depth and the bonding that happens is pretty extraordinary. The group bonds, because we keep it intimate, we cap it at 12, the group bonds. And then there's a ton of, amazing relationships and friendships that come out of it. I'm blessed with incredible relationships after every one of our adventures.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what kind of volunteer activities have your participants engaged in? Like, you've had a number of trips to different locations. So what kinds of things have people done?
So when I first started, I actually ran two specific trips for female entrepreneurs. And we actually went and ran workshops for women in two different communities. One was Belize and the other were female farmers in Nepal. So it was workshops. It was sort of based on your expertise. And we were able to do some incredible, sharing and story sharing and also learning. So we had opportunities to learn from the locals as well. I'm all about sort of going in with equal sort of respect and true partnership and collaboration. And then more recently, we've been doing more physical work. The trips have been sort of open for anyone, not a specific demographic. And my big thing is always asking, what do you need? So we don't go in thinking, oh, I think they want to, we want to build a school or we want to build a well. We go in and say, what do you actually need? And what are you, what's kind of on your on your planning? What do you have coming up that maybe we can help accelerate or make happen faster, quicker? Maybe we can bring resources that might have been a struggle to get. So in the past, we have built a storage shed for a community that had a beautiful open air community center, but they barely used it because they had to bring all of their stuff every time for any meals or celebrations or courses. And a lot of them didn't have cars. So they were like lugging all their stuff there and then dragging it all back home. So they didn't use it very often. And I said, if we had a storage unit here, we could just store the kitchen supplies. We could build, up sort of the things that we need for a kitchen, for having these, celebrations and stuff. And so that's what we did behind the community center. We built a big storage unit for them.
You listen to the people who you're helping as opposed to just telling them?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I know. Revolutionary. And the same in Tanzania, we asked Maggie Duncan, incredible founder of Dare Women's Foundation, what she needed. And she had she's this beautiful piece of land that she owned, but they can't do anything with it. They can't plant anything because animals would just come and eat anything that they planted, or they can't build because people would just come and start, using the space. It was quite out in sort of an open, remote area. And so we built a perimeter wall as our very first project on this huge piece of land. We dug the holes, put in the concrete pillars, worked alongside local contractors, and put up this big, beautiful fence. And then a few years later, just back in 2022, we went and we actually started building a community home on the land where Maggie can stay and actually host women who are trying to get out of abusive or toxic relationships and are seeking refuge. And then there's hopes to develop more and more on that land. So again, we listened to the organizations and have responded. And we also went down to Puerto Rico and did some rebuilding and helping after Hurricane Maria more recently, and partnered with a local organization that was doing work in that capacity. So we were working, sealing up roofs so that future hurricanes wouldn't soak the houses and flood the houses. And we were doing mold removal inside and changing in and out windows so they were hurricane proof. So all sorts of different stuff. Again, very responsive to the community needs. But also, I'm really enjoying the physical piece I always have. And I find that's where a lot of incredible growth happens for individuals that don't often get out and really get physical. And it's an amazing opportunity to see what your body is actually capable of. And
then you actually see tangibly an impact of something you've done, which is really reinforcing.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
You have one coming up, right? So the Tanzania. So just where can people find out about it if they're interested?
So at UGO Impact, UGOimpact.com is our website. And there's information on Tanzania there as well. Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. Again, UGO Impact is our handle. So check us out and follow us anywhere there. I'm constantly sharing information. I'm doing lives and everything, sharing more about the program. Find me lots of places.
What about you? How did you find your way into this? Like it's an interesting, to go from, you had a little bit of you mentioned you were in the nonprofit world and then went into entrepreneurship. What was your journey to get here?
Yeah. So I spent a number of years hopping around from different charities, just finding the work wasn't fulfilling enough for me. I felt so distant from the cause. I didn't feel my gifts and talents were being used. I was in event coordinating and fundraising, and I just kept feeling there was more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to have a bigger impact. And I did love my final job. It was in disability sport development. And I had done that for 3 years, and it was amazing. It was Parasport Ontario. But then I met a boy. We decided to move abroad and live in Uganda and volunteer there. And I decided to do it within the disability sport capacity. And I had the most incredible year personally. We got engaged professionally. I held the first National Disability Sports Summit. Like, it was just amazing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible years. This is back 2011, 2012. I came back and became really sort of unhappy and kind of depressed back in Toronto. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. I had felt this beautiful freedom there, even though we had worked for, a small charity. I had been very clear. I'm like, we'll come in when we want in the mornings. Well, if we want to take Fridays off, we want to take vacation time, we will. And they were like, that's totally cool. You're coming and volunteering your time. Like, we're flexible, but we put in the time and energy. I couldn't come back and go back to a 9-to-5 with the lack of freedom and all of that kind of stuff. So I knew I wanted to do something different. I wasn't sure what. And I started exploring. My sister's a therapist, and I thought about that. But life coaching seemed to call me and my personality more. And so I decided I was going to take a life coaching program. And I did. And it blew my mind. I learned so much about myself. Like, oh my gosh, I discovered what my values were. That I had limiting beliefs, like that I had a mindset, like so many things. Oh my gosh, it was super eye-opening, incredibly transformative. And a lot of it actually came from my time in Uganda, like so many things. And what I realized was all of my values had been present in Uganda. None of my values were present in Toronto. It's why I was so unhappy. I didn't have community. I didn't have sense of purpose. I didn't have adventure. I didn't have freedom, like all these things. And so coming out of that, of course, everyone's like, who are you going to coach? What's your niche going to be? What's your business going to be? And something kept coming back to the humanitarian, the volunteering, the giving back piece, though I needed to figure out what that was. And I went again and I volunteered in the Philippines for a month after Typhoon Yolanda, doing rebuilding and repairing. And that was ridiculously eye-opening for me. It was the most devastation I've ever seen. Such suffering. It was just really, really moving and extremely purposeful work. And I started to chat with a lot of the volunteers there, exploring life coaching, doing some life coaching with them. And so many of them were having these like, how do I go from making all this difference to go back home? What am I going to do after this? So much stuff was coming up for them that they weren't processing or understanding. And I thought, this is it. Life coaching is incredibly powerful. Volunteering abroad is incredibly powerful and transformative. And if I put those together, wow, huge transformation for participants and also making a difference in the world. And as someone who loves to go and volunteer abroad and travel, I thought, well, this is perfect. I'm creating a business where I get to do all the things I love. So that was also a piece of it. And so, yeah, I connected with an entrepreneur who has her community and wanted to do a volunteer abroad experience. And I said, I'm down. Let me organize and lead that for you. I believe deeply that we need to include some sort of emotional and educational curriculum, like life coaching, to support this experience. Can we sort of beta test this? And so for the next 2 years, we did that with bullies in Nepal. It was incredible. The results were incredible. It was amazing. And so from there, I continued on, and yeah, here I am.
And since then, do you enjoy the entrepreneurial life?
I do. I love the freedom. I love that I am doing something that I feel really does make a difference, and something that really uses my gifts and skills. I used to do a lot of paper pushing and everything. And, like you said at the beginning, I now get to create these incredibly safe spaces, these incredible adventures. I get to have a really direct impact on people's lives, and I get to spend really incredible time with people rather than just behind a laptop. That being said, like all businesses, it's challenging. Life is busy and hectic, and marketing takes up a huge piece of your life, and all of that. And it has challenged me, though, in beautiful, beautiful ways. I have grown as a human extraordinarily because of the entrepreneurial journey. Before, I used to knock on doors, and when I was asking, it was always for something else or for a cause. And now I'm out putting myself, hey, come join me because I've created this thing. That takes a ton of bravery and courage, and getting over inner demons and gremlins and stuff. So there's been incredible growth and a lot of fun. And I had a business partner for a while, and that was super fun. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and she had to go and get a full-time job because travel wasn't happening for those few years. That was amazing. So I've loved the entrepreneurial journey and totally wouldn't trade it, and would really struggle to go back. But it's not, of course, without its challenges like COVID for a travel business.
Yes.
There's definitely been challenges as well.
Now, I recall a conversation you and I had where you did something with your pricing to make the program more widely accessible. Can you just walk through your thinking on that?
Yeah. So for me, service and giving back is one of my, if not, connection is up there. They always battle each other out. Connection and service truly are two of my highest highest values. And I had a price point that I just felt wasn't completely accessible to a lot of people. And so my sister goes to a lot of Buddhist retreats, and she talks about their pricing model, where those that can afford to pay, more do. And then there's kind of a price point that covers the running of, the retreat, but there's not necessarily profit. And then there's even, opportunities to go and have the community sort of pay for you. So more of like scholarships, bursary style. And those are that don't have the funds. And so I still have a price point that's what it used to be for those that can afford it. And then I have a lower price point that is more just helping to cover the costs of in-country, the running of the business, not all crazy profit focused, which I find the entrepreneurial world is really all about the get to the six figures, make your next seven scale and all that. That's just not where I'm at. I want enough money to be able to live a pretty, modest, comfortable life. But yeah, my biggest thing is I want that if people want to give back and make a difference and have this incredible journey, I want for that to be a possibility for them. I want them to be able to join me and have this experience. So yeah, I have sort of 3 tiers now within my pricing to try to make it more accessible. There are obviously hard costs that need to be covered. We, climb a mountain, and there's a donation piece that's a part of it, but just trying to make it more accessible rather than going to the making the crazy, crazy money. I would still use it to make a difference, but I would rather be able to bring more people and allow people this opportunity, even if they don't have sort of the big bucks to be able to afford a program like this.
I love that, because it's, people in my profession, they push and preach people maximizing profits. There's entrepreneur groups where it's really about, growth, profit, all that kind of thing. I always use the word optimize profits rather than maximize profits, because it's like, what do you need for your life? And it's you have permission. One of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship is you get to craft the life you want to create, not what other people think it should be. And just the fact that you just accepted that freedom and chose a business model that aligns with your values while still giving you and the people you serve the experience you want. I think that's great. And that's what entrepreneurship should be about. There aren't, third-party pressures that performance requires a certain outcome. It's the outcome you want. So
Exactly.
kudos to you.
Thank you.
I know we're running. I was very curious because you and I chatted previously too about, and I think this is an important conversation for people who want to have impact to think about how care has to be taken when doing good. Like we joked earlier about, you actually listen to people, but there can be like unintended consequences, right? Especially when there's a bit of the mentality of the saviors from the north coming to rescue you, poor people, that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about those challenges and why entrepreneurs who want to do good need to be pretty thoughtful about that?
Absolutely.
Like what kinds of consequences can happen that actually aren't so wonderful?
Yeah. So one of the big things is, and everyone's like, oh, just best intentions, good intentions. I was like, that's not enough. Not when you're potentially impacting people's lives and communities that you're trying to help. And so being very thoughtful, one of the biggest things I always say is like, what's the long-term impact of any action you're taking? And so here's an example. There's Tom's shoes, this buy one, give one, this brilliant model that was, celebrated. They won awards for it. It was incredible. But really what they were doing was dumping a whole container of shoes into a community, which kind of messes, to be honest, with the local, shoemaking.
Anybody who wants to sell shoes is out of business.
Completely. So, and it would have these kind of unintended consequences. I believe they have changed their business model. And so we do a lot of that. We do a lot of, let me just come and help you without really thinking through long-term impact. And within, for sure, if you're dealing with, not just international, but anything where you are dealing with communities that can be seen as vulnerable. But here's the thing, they often aren't. Like, we approach them like with these like kid gloves and pity these people we want to work with. Oftentimes they're extraordinarily resilient, brilliant, amazing, strong individuals that are living in crap conditions. Absolutely. And so we often can come with this mentality of we're better than, we're the ones helping and saving and all this. And that's just not a healthy approach. It is looking to partner with incredible people and other change makers and seeing how can we bring all of our resources from here, your resources, and working in a way that's respectful, that's collaborative, and has positive long-term impact. So a lot of times when I am looking at things, it's the same as anyone starting up. Yeah, sometimes you need an infusion of capital. And that doesn't mean that you're creating an ongoing dependence model. It's just as a business owner, we need capital, we need startup. Similarly, these communities, they needed money to build a fence, to get started. They need some money. But Maggie also has money coming in to help continue the work that they're doing. So we're not just building something, walking away, and nothing's going to happen, which often happens when people go and build schools. They think we're building a school. This is amazing. And the community has no money to support the continuing actual running of a school. But we don't think about that because we're just so excited to build a school and get the Instagram photos and, do that kind of work. So it's thinking about what does the relationship look like now? What's the plan for it going forward? And not that there can't be some sort of dependence or relationship going on, but you just don't want to create a hugely one-sided dependence that could end suddenly, leaving people in the lurch or leaving them without funding for something. When we travel abroad, everyone's like, I want to bring school supplies and give them to the kids and see their happy faces. And I'm like, that's only really for you. And you're bringing school supplies again. What about the local stationery store that's now not going to have a school buying supplies for them because there is a huge influx from a group of people, coming from outside? And what kind of power dynamic is that continuing to show with the white savior showing up, giving again? So my big thing is, if we bring our money, we can buy supplies in country. If you want to make a difference and help out a school that maybe is struggling financially, then we give the supplies to the teacher, to the principal, and let them disseminate it We don't need our moment of glory of being seen, with the kids smiling. Look at what the white people brought. It's about raising the local leadership. And so those are some international examples, but it's how you work anywhere. It's respectful, resource sharing, collaborative, looking at the long-term impact of our presence and of the work that we're going to be doing.
Now, I'm curious, when you have these conversations in your coaching program, or to the extent you do, like I can see, like I think between you and I, we've had this conversation before that seems kind of obvious, but what you just said there, saying, you want the happy faces, that's about you. That's a hard message for some people to hear. Like, do you get pushback on that? Do people feel insulted? Or do they have a moment of realization that, yeah, my desire to see the happy look on the faces by doing something is actually a self-interested objective and isn't about actually helping people? I call that philanthropy, like fake philanthropy.
I love that. Love that term. Yes. I don't necessarily get pushback. I get a lot of the like, wow, I hadn't thought about it like that. And it is super well-intentioned. And I talk about that. And this is where good intentions, it can't just be about good intentions. And I'll say, I know the intention is you want to bring that in and you want to make the kids happy, but what's the bigger impact you're having by that act? And that's not to say we can't go and spend time with children and see them smiling. We've arranged soccer games in local schools and things like that. And we've, like the kids are at a school. When we were in Ecuador, the kids were at the school while we were building on the site, and we got to go and play with them and see their smiles. But it wasn't about like, I'm giving you something as a white person to make you smile and kind of effing up, that you always believe it's these white people that give us stuff. Like, no, you have incredible leaders here, incredible teachers that care about you and give you tons of stuff. And like, so a lot of them appreciate that awareness just being brought to them. And we still have an opportunity to see kids happy and enjoying themselves, just not because we did something special.
Right.
And the same, it just the shifting. So a lot of people say, oh, we can bring sanitary pads over and everything. I said, cool. Again, let's just think out the process, the impact. You bring over some beautiful always with wings and drive weave and all of the things. They use it for like a month. Then they run out and they go back to the crap they were using before. Like, has that been of service to show them what they don't have in their country and what's beyond them being able to use because of crazy prices and stuff like that? Like, was that actually a lovely thing for you to do ultimately? And again, eye-opening. And it still can say, hey, we can still, bring over, we can still bring pads. Why don't we buy them in country? Again, supporting local, giving local. And that's a adult to adult relationship. So it's not the same if we're donating to an organization or whatever. It doesn't have that same vulnerability dynamic as giving to children. So I don't get pushback as much as a lot of like, wow, I just hadn't thought of that.
Nice.
And I'm
sorry, go ahead.
My delivery.
Yes. So what's in store for the future of UGO? Are you going to bring in other coaches to allow you to run more programs? Are you going to keep it at the level of doing it yourself? Or are there any innovations or new things coming up?
Yeah. So some new things that I have done it in the past, but the more recent programs have been sort of open and single, individuals filling up. I just took a group down that was a group of moms from a community of moms that already knew each other. And it was amazing to have this group bond even further and more deeply and to have this shared experience together. So something I have been considering is running more custom group programs for communities that already exist, whether that's entrepreneur groups or sort of corporate groups or community groups that want to have this kind of experience together, do the sharing together, the vulnerability, the growth, the giving, possibly climb a mountain, not necessary. We have programs that don't include Kilimanjaro, and that sort of thing. So looking to see if groups would be interested in coming to have this incredible experience shared. And in 2025, I am looking, and we're kind of doing some research, preliminary research now around running a family program. So allowing parents to bring their children, and again, including all of this stuff, including the self-awareness piece and the looking inside, figuring out your values, figuring out your family values, looking at your family's social legacy and how they want to make a difference when they go home. All of that kind of awesome stuff that we do within our curriculum, just shifting a little bit more so that it's, accessible to children and with a bit of a family focus on it. And then at the same time, making a difference and doing some giving back in the local community. So again, likely going to Tanzania. And it might be different work. It might be the, parents still working on a physical build and the kids working on something less less big and structured, muscle, potentially, garden planting or, even like tree planting, whatever it might be, but looking to see, and again, based on sort of the needs of the community and what makes sense. So I think that's going to be really exciting. I already have a couple of families who were like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. My kids are just getting to feel a little entitled and spend way too much time on their iPads and on playing Fortnite and things, and to sort of get away and have that level of exposure and immersive experience, no screens, some self-exploration, some family time. I think it's going to be pretty awesome.
That's fantastic. I can imagine there's a lot of like local communities or faith-based groups and things like that, which would be great channels to reach people through.
Exactly.
I know we're running out of time, so I just want to do a little, I'd always end these off with kind of a rapid fire, just a series of short questions, and just right off the top of your head, whatever the first answer is. One decision or action that most helped you get you where you are.
One decision or action that has helped me get to where I am?
Yeah.
I would say going and living in Uganda, volunteering abroad.
If you had to do it over again, what would you do different?
I would invest more money in doing and less in having people tell me what to do. For signing up for programs where someone was going to tell me what to do. Yeah, right. That kind of thing. Yeah.
One aspect of running a business I've yet to master.
Consistent positive mindset on a daily basis.
That's a common one. One personal quality that I most had to improve or overcome.
Sharing my voice and my stories.
That you didn't do it or you did do it?
I didn't do it, and I'm working to embrace that and to get out more like this and share more of, who I am and what I believe in, and just sharing myself more with the world.
And no false humility, one personal quality that most contributed to your success.
My deep passion to be of service.
That's a great place to end off. And I hope you do share more of yourself, because you have a lot to share in this organization. Your company is doing a lot of great things and more people can benefit from it. I wish you continued success. And thank you very much for joining us on the Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me, Warren. This has been absolutely lovely.
And just once again, where do people find you?
It's UGO, UGO Impact.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.